following is an interview with all-time world record holding powerlifter Joe Sullivan, who recently set the world record in the squat at 100 kilograms for 849 pounds. In this interview, we discuss how Joe got into powerlifting, what it has taken for him to beat his own record year over year, variation for powerlifting training, and also the Platz squat challenge that he did recently at Dragon's Lair Gym. Overall, this was a really fun interview, and Joe's someone who I came in contact with a few years ago and got a really good vibe from him. And he seems to be a powerlifter who really thinks about things and advocates for the community. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review on your favorite listening platform. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel for more interviews, like the video, comment something you found interesting. I hope you enjoy this interview just as much as we enjoyed conducting it.
Fucking bullshit. I fucking hate this piece of shit. He's going to the pound.
He says that now.
Okay, well, hello everyone.
Sorry.
It's okay. I know I'm not the host, but for everyone just tuning in, my dog pissed on our comforter.
Wait, is this live?
Yeah, we just started recording. Oh man, okay, podcast mode. Hi guys, what's up?
Hello.
That was fun. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Great way to open the podcast.
No fucking shit. God damn. Well, thank you guys for rescheduling after a week or 2 weeks or whatever it was.
No problem at all, man. I think that life happens. So anytime someone's like, every time I'm late or someone else is late, I'm like, we're good.
Yeah.
I can't control the other person though. But
Yep. Yeah, I get you.
Well, no, I wanted to thank you for coming on. I was just talking with Trevor before. I don't know if you've talked to Trevor before.
I have not really. I don't think so. If I have and I'm lying, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
So Trevor's a good friend of mine, but he used to powerlift. And so I figured it would be good to have him on just because he might have a little bit more background when talking to you. He's also just awesome when it comes to sports science and technique and stuff like that. So we always run stuff by each other, but I just wanted to have him on. So he's a good dude.
Cool. I mean, I'm fine with it. Like either way.
Yeah. You're like, nope, get the fuck out of here. But I wanted to have Joe on because this is, generally a bodybuilding podcast. We generally talk about, hypertrophy and all that good stuff. But more recently, I found myself more interested in powerlifting. I have a few clients that powerlift. And also Joe's just a good dude. And I like to have people who have like similar values to me. I'd like to have more people on the podcast that have similar values to me and are good people, because I think that we should get those people out as much as we can. Enough people focusing on negativity and things like that. I think that it's good to have good people. So I just wanted to thank you for coming on, Joe.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, man. Like I don't know. I am one of those guys who kind of just feels as though because I have like a pretty decent social media following or whatever, and I'm just I've always been ultimately raised in order or with the kind of not moral code, but just kind of the thing at the forefront that I lead with. Like if we have the opportunity to do good or like be good or like spread good or whatever, we also have the obligation to. So that's why because I don't know, we've been following one another for a while, and there have been like a couple of different things that I've either like spoken out on or just like said, and I come off, I know on social media I come off as an asshole sometimes, but it's really I just kind of am blunt with what I say, and I just generally appreciate the kind words, because not everybody says that I like leads with, "Hey, Joe's such a great dude." So I'm like, "Hey, thank you. I appreciate the niceties, because I am just trying to do good ultimately." So that's cool.
That's good. I mean, I think that's all that matters. I think my compass, as I've gotten older, has definitely gotten better. Like I just remember first meeting you and just getting good vibes. So that's really my gauge, I guess.
Cool.
But I did want to talk about a few things in this podcast as relating to your powerlifting career. First and foremost, you just recently set the all-time squat world record at what body weight was it?
I compete in the 100 kilogram class. So I weighed in at 219.8 pounds, I think, just under 100 kg. 100 kg is like 220.4.
Yeah.
So we, like we've talked previously, like we do the whole water cut manipulation stuff to make weight. Like, but I weighed in at 219, and then I went on to squat 385 kilos, which is 148.8 pounds, I think, something around there. So heavy, decently heavy.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. It's insane, especially at that body weight, to carry that. What is that? 4x your body weight?
Close to it. That's actually one of my goals in reality is not just to hit a 4 times body weight squat, but I want to be I'm attempting to, because I broke this all-time world record in 2020, and I've re-broken it every year since I've competed since 2020. Did it in 2020, 2021, 2022. Now we're into 2023, and I compete in 8 weeks, so we'll see what happens. But I really, really would like to, at least before I'm done with the 220-pound weight class, I want to be the best pound for pound squatter in history. In order to do that, I would have to squat over 4 times body weight at 220. So I'd have to get a little above 880. So that's I don't know if that's going to be this year, but that is the goal before I move on from the 220 weight class, because I'm getting bigger. I'm hanging out with too many bodybuilders, and I'm eating too well. So it's getting a little bit more and more difficult to make that weight cut each year as we go along.
Yeah, I would love to talk about your bodybuilding endeavors later, but with that, I think one thing I want to highlight really quickly is that that's what it was, 848, right, or somewhere around those was the squat. So we're talking like 32 pounds. Is that correct? To be able to hit that record, right?
Yep.
The magnitude of difference at that weight, 32 pounds, seems like not a lot. Like, oh yeah, your gym bro will tell you, like, I put 32 pounds on my bench, is from what I understand, a lot, right? That's not easy. That's not like, oh yeah, just train for a couple weeks and it's there. It's like when you're already pushing the highest threshold you can, 32 pounds is monumental. And I don't mean to, like, blow it out, like, but I just wanted to illustrate that, at least for people listening who aren't super familiar with powerlifting. That's my understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And it in conjunction with that, it's also the fact that to hit a 30-pound PR in a year as a novice or an intermediate, that's understandable. It's like, okay, cool. But my training age is going on 15 years. My first powerlifting meet was in 2007. So it's not some light task. But don't get me wrong, like, this is actually one of those like fun psychological games that we play with ourselves. I will literally have conversations in my brain and be like, well, it's only because I actually just hit a 744-pound squat for my first heavy squat of prep yesterday. And I was like, well, it's only 120 more pounds to break my record. That's not that bad, or to reach that goal. It's like, oh, it's only 32 more pounds. Like, pick up a 35-pound weight plate, and you're like, that's not that much. It's just rationalization in my head. When in reality, I could, you never know how difficult or how much more difficult it becomes when you are getting to like the top end of your physical capacity. Thank you. She is my hero. This is why I love this woman, because we've been out of the house for forever and she brought me food. Thank you so much. Yeah. Even if it's just protein shakes.
And she got the pee.
Yeah, exactly. But the point is, it's hard to put it's hard to put 5 pounds on your PR when you're at that like top 0.1% or whatever. And I don't mean to like toot my own horn, but having the all-time world record, it's like the most ever done in that weight class in the history of the sport. So by definition, it is that top 0.1%. So that's one of the reasons I've not only, and one of the reasons I'm actually grateful to have started hanging around so many bodybuilders, because I see how regimented and disciplined they are with not just the training, not just the diet, but the entire lifestyle. I don't credit the entirety of the success to it, but I broke the world record. I broke the world record in 2020 for the first time with 822 pounds. If you go back and watch that squat, it was hard. It was really, really hard. It looked like that was the top of my capacity, like the max of the max, and there was no more. And at that time, I was honestly considering retiring from powerlifting because I thought I had done the best that I could do with my level of dedication, my level of not even dedication, but my knowledge base, my ability, and just my emotional capacity to put that much into it. But then Bree and I moved to Las Vegas, hanging out with a bunch of bodybuilders, and I not only put as much of myself into the training as I put into the training and into like the diet to some degree, but I revamped my whole lifestyle. I started learning more, exploring different methods of training, different like aspects that I could incorporate from bodybuilding, different aspects that I could incorporate from balance training. I love listening to David Weck. He's an absolute crazy person in some ways, but in others he speaks and it makes in the most sense out of anything. He's just a goofy dude, but I love the man. But just incorporating a lot of different things and revamped my entire lifestyle to put a little bit more. Not, I don't want to say put a little bit more effort, but just really keep pushing. And when I broke the record in 2021, I hit my third attempt at 838 pounds. It looked like I could put 20 pounds on that squat that day and hit it. It looked like I had some left in the tank. Roll back to a couple of months ago when I rebroke the record, I hit 848 pounds on my third attempt. It looks like I had pounds left to give in the tank. So it's just incrementally increasing, and sometimes like we think we've exhausted all options, but you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. So as if you allow yourself to explore more and always stay a student of the game, I don't know when I'm going to be done. I don't know how hard it's going to be because I've just I've put systems in place for me to follow, and we're just making it happen. So we'll see.
Yeah. Stan Efferding has a really good rant called why the people at Westside Barbell are so strong. And he talks a lot about environment, and I think that's really big. I think that probably is a big contributing factor. It's something I've seen with myself, is being around those more like-minded people definitely has an effect. And then I think sometimes in powerlifting, you mentioned like nutrition too. I feel like not all powerlifters do this, but some, at least, the ones I'm in contact with, there's a lot of gym bros and stuff, but like nutrition's more of an afterthought, like, eat your protein, whatever. But like, are people really like thinking, about that on the competitive side of powerlifting a lot? Is that something like maybe the higher level people are like, could you maybe touch on that? I just wanted to explore that real quick.
So absolutely. That's the way it's been progressing in the past couple of years. Like the higher, the more elite of the elite, the guys at the top generally just eat like off-season bodybuilders. Like the more regimented the meal plan can be, the more regimented and scheduled the life can be. Generally, the more you can make it suit your goals. So it only makes sense. And that's one of the things that I'll readily admit. Like leading into 2020 when I first broke the record, and even a little bit after, I was very much the guy who was exactly as you described. Like I would eat my protein, like get enough protein, but I would pay zero attention to meal timing, zero attention to food composition, zero attention to pretty much anything other than getting my protein. I was the type of guy where I would eat like maybe have like a packed meal during the day, have like a protein shake in the morning, maybe have another protein shake later in the evening, and then like just be like, okay, my fitness pal, yeah, I got the minimum in, and then I'll grab some bullshit from the gas station on the way home from the gym, or I'll DoorDash when I get back to my house, or I'll do this frozen pizza or that, or blah blah blah. Just like way more IIFYM oriented, but not even IIFYM. Like just kind of hit my protein approximately, and then just eat what I felt like, you know. So that's a huge thing that I credit not only like being able to put more energy and effort towards my training because I'm recovering better, I'm more fueled, but also I'm the biggest and leanest I ever have been, while also being the strongest and the healthiest I ever have been too. So
yeah,
and I do wish, I believe me, I do wish, because there's a lot of, and don't get me wrong, like it's not for everybody, because powerlifting is it's welcoming to anyone, and some people do it as purely a hobby. It's just like they like to go compete, just like Uncle Dan likes to run 5Ks to just do shit, you know. So it's not for everybody, but I do wish that some like people at like the beginner and intermediate to like better than intermediate level understood how much beneficial it could be to actually like take a note from the bodybuilding side of things in that regard.
Right. I mean, there are similarities to strength training and hypertrophy training, and
100%.
physiology
100%.
doesn't really change between humans, right? So,
right.
No, that's a really good point. But I think also we're talking about someone who wants to be elite. Obviously, there's levels to it, right? Like, you know, intermediate, beginner powerlifters might not need to focus on that stuff as much, same as intermediate to beginner bodybuilders, right? But like, those little differences, they make a huge difference when you're talking about 30 pounds on the bar, 5 pounds on the bar. Like, you know, we're talking about nutrient timing, stuff like that. Like those things add up. Like people argue that they're important or they're not, but they add up. And it's really cool to see that that's made a difference in your training. Now we're talking about elite powerlifting here. I wanted to backtrack for a sec and just kind of go back to where it started. Like, how did you get into powerlifting? And one other question I wanted to add there is, did you know that this was in your cards? Like, would you have ever foreseen where you are currently?
To answer the second question first, absolutely not. Because and to supplement it is like I never thought that I would be where I am now. I never thought I would look the way that I am now. Because when I started powerlifting, I was, and I honestly don't know if you know this about me, Dylan. I've talked about it, but I was like I was the poster boy for childhood obesity when I was 12, 13, 14. I was over 300 pounds. And the only reason that you didn't know it?
No.
Yeah, the only reason that I started powerlifting was because I was going to, there was a powerlifting club at the high school I was going to be attending my summer the summer after my 8th grade year. And I went up there and I was like, I'm going to play football. I'm a big guy. Like, I'm a big kid. I need to be like an offensive lineman. I need to be strong. There's a powerlifting club. They lift weights. They'll show me how to lift weights. This is what I'm going to do. And I started doing it, and to my disturbed surprise, it was that even though and I love my, like, God rest my Polish grandmother's soul, my Nana, she overfed me. I still struggle with a relationship with food because she overfed my ass so hard, saying you got to be big and strong, you got to be big and strong, you got to be big and strong. And believe me, I ate like I was big and strong, but the problem with that was I didn't do shit. All I did was play video games. PlayStation 2 and RuneScape were my shit back in the day. And but that's all I did. So when I started powerlifting at like 13, 14 years old, thinking I'm going to be this big, strong dude who's just going to be like, this is what I am, I remember I got stapled with 135 on the bar with squatting the first time I tried. And I literally dumped the bar rolled off my back. I fell on my ass, and it was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. And I was like, I don't know if I ever want to fucking do this again, you know? But I stuck with it. I tried it out. Throughout high school, I I joined the wrestling team. And through the course of high school, I went from over 300 pounds to weighing in at the state tournament for wrestling at 169 pounds. So
Holy shit.
I lost over 100 pounds, well over 100 pounds. But a big thing with that was that was disturbing to me, not understanding physiology, not understanding like anything, because I'm a kid. I don't fucking know anything. I'm just figuring it out as we go. I thought I was going to be all jacked. I was going to lose weight and I was going to look great and it was going to be awesome. I lost a bunch of weight and I was just skinny. I was just like a small person. So it was like, damn, I guess I just have to keep lifting weights. And I just kept powerlifting because that was what I knew. There was no club bodybuilding team or anything like that. It was just like powerlifting is the weightlifting that I was exposed to as a kid. So that's just what I stuck with. Went to college for wrestling, ended up quitting because I was just burnt out, but then just stuck with powerlifting. And then because I had done it for that time and just kept going and kept going and kept going, I started to be like, man, okay, I actually enjoy this. And this is something that I want to do. It allows me to continue to be competitive, but I'm like changing my physique and looking better and feeling strong and actually building confidence and making myself feel like a confident person rather than being that kid who walked into the weight room who was 300 pounds and was getting stapled by 135. So it was like an ongoing experience and journey. And I never, like the kid that walked into the weight room, I never would have imagined I'd be like who I am or what I look like now. But it was always just something that I would do because I as ridiculous as it is, I still have my Nana's voice in my head because I was super close with her. I spent a lot of time at their house due to like just a lot of family issues and poverty and whatnot. But I still have her voice in my head telling me that I need to be big and strong. And I eat, and she'd love the fact that I was eating, but she would absolutely hate the way that I lift weights these days. Because I remember if she was alive, like I know if she was alive to see me break those squat records, she would absolutely be like, you are killing yourself. This is insane. So yeah, I never would have thought I'd be where I am, but that's the fun part of all of this. I think I don't think we're supposed to know where the journey ends when we start it, at least not in this context.
Yeah. Yeah. And in contrast, my Polish grandma would grab my love handles and say that I was getting a little chunky. So I think we had different awesome. Polish grandbrothers. No, man, that's really cool. It's amazing the evolution of that too. When you think of like I had a question, like, do you ever like, do you still battle with that guy, that kid who was overweight? Like, is that still with you ever?
100%, dude. Like I still like, I don't want to say that I don't know. Cause I was never diagnosed with like an eating disorder or anything, but I absolutely would have like disordered eating habits because like when I first lost the weight, like I would literally, again, it was like I didn't know anything about nutrition. I would just not eat, or like take like a packet, like those stupid little those little like tuna packet things for not the packets, but like the tuna on the go meals where it's like the little can of tuna with like the 6 crackers that come with it and like the little dauber spoon. I would eat like 2 of those for lunch, and that was my lunch, and then I'd have a salad for dinner, and it was all this crazy, overly restrictive stuff. Right. So it's like I still have kind of weird tendencies with food. I struggle with binging sometime, overeating, and then other times I feel myself like wanting to hyper restrict and like not allow myself, like have this like weird, not just restricting, but like have this like weird anxiety revolving any deviation from the plan. So it's like there's still echoes there, and that's that's a big thing, and it's a big thing that a lot of people like. It's due to me growing up in that manner and like going through puberty like that and like learn behavior as being a kid. But people don't think about that stuff a lot when they get into like a barbell sport like powerlifting or a physique based sport like bodybuilding. Like how many people have posted after like bodybuilding preps are like, oh my god, this shit gave me an eating disorder, and it's like, no, it didn't give you an eating disorder. It brought out some like tendencies and habits that were already in your head. It just fucking shoved that shit to the forefront. Yeah. So yeah.
No, that's really, really interesting. Yeah, and I think that the extreme part of it can definitely bring that out in people.
Mm-hmm.
And Trevor is actually someone who's been through that journey as well.
Yeah.
That's, I think, around the time you were powerlifting is when you had lost a lot of that weight.
Powerlifting is part of what got me, like, it was part of the early phase of what got me into lifting weights. Just when I initially started to lose weight, I didn't know I just did cardio because I want to lose weight. That's what you do cardio.
Yeah.
And powerlifting was kind of my introduction to weight training. But yeah, I mean, even now, years later, I still struggle with a lot of those same things that Joe mentioned. So I feel like that's something that, and Joe would probably agree, that you don't necessarily ever get rid of entirely.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. It's the same. It's the same as any like mental struggle, dude. Like we all, I don't want to say we all, but like there are so many people out there that struggle with like depression, anxiety, anger issues, whatever. It's like we don't, none of it ever goes away, but we just get better at managing it, better at dealing with it, you know, because I like now I'm in a really good spot. Like I'm on a meal plan that I don't have like a lot of anxiety surrounding, because I like following my meal plan. I like following the schedule of it. And then even if because a thing that would happen with me in the past, if I had to like had to change my schedule because a call came up or there was an emergency or something, it was like, okay, I missed this one meal, so fuck it. The rest of the day doesn't matter. I'm just gonna fill it in. Or like I have Bree brings me like a donut home or something, and I'm like, oh, I have this, so fuck it. I'm already cheating. May as well make it fucking worth it, you know?
Yeah.
And but now it's like you get to a point and it doesn't, you don't get to the point without working at it. It doesn't just happen, but in a perfect world, you can achieve, like get to a mentality or get to a place within yourself where you understand that like 90%, like 90% of the time is better than 100%, like 60% of the time. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I find myself wanting to wish away. Like I have pretty bad anxiety, and I find myself wanting to wish it away. Like, oh yeah, like I'll find some way to just get rid of it. But it's like you just get better at managing it, and you find ways in which you can live your lifestyle. You find, you know, like for you, a meal plan or something like different strategies to actually work with it, right? Instead of trying to avoid it, which was a lot of my issue in the past. And I think that's really important to highlight. So you can't get rid of those things, right? They are things. Sometimes I just need to shut down for a day. Like that's just how it is. But I am definitely more productive than I used to be because I've learned to manage it in ways like that. So
100, dude, and that's such a big thing for me too, because like I've been diagnosed with ADHD since I was like in third grade, and it's always been a thing where like I was either on the medication and like would make it work and just have to like even then I still would still get overwhelmed because I sometimes struggle with like sensory issues and like sensory overload, where like if I am too distracted or too like stimulated, I get like a physical response, and I basically will like start to stutter and like kind of get like really tense, and it will come out as like this anger, and I could feel it like building up in myself, but I just never knew how to manage it. But then like this is why it's important, like because I'm a big proponent of just like therapy in general, and talking about your shit, and just actually like actively trying to figure it out, because like you said, you need a day where you to just chill and like check out. That's exactly the thing that I found was like a key factor that I would never really give myself, because I'm the type of guy where it's like, if I'm not doing something, I'm like, oh my God, I'm lazy. Like, I'm a piece of shit.
That's
At
me.
like, I'm like forgetting to do this thing or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm just the worst dude in the world. But then I realized it's like, okay, if I can actually make myself a schedule, but then schedule myself time where it's like just nothing, and I can either sit up like, I don't know how, I don't know how open your guys' podcast is, but I'll get like super stoned and just
Yeah.
like eat like two or three edibles, and have like an afternoon where it's like I have a call in the morning or I have some shit to do in the morning, and then from like noon to 8 p.m. I'm sitting and either playing Call of Duty or reading or just fucking sitting listening to music, stoned off my ass because I don't have any obligations or anything. And because I've like scheduled that time, I'm not worrying about what else is coming next, because
Right.
I know that this has already been factored into the equation. So
Right. Yeah, that's really important. I think it's hard to, if you're someone who, like, a lot of my anxieties are linked to my productivity, and if you've scheduled it out, then it's technically like your productive time, right? It's in your calendar, right? Yeah,
yep.
That's an awesome little tip, actually. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the actual cyclical periodization of powerlifting. Trevor, could you?
Yeah. So, like, if anyone's ever seen Joe's training, like, it's definitely, he does a lot of things that you don't see powerlifters doing. And you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. And especially, a lot of times you see people, as they get more advanced, their training becomes more specific. And now, of course, you have times closer to meet where that specificity is increasing. But then you aren't keeping that like super high level of specificity year round, which
Right.
I think you're seeing more and more these days, where even like, beginner first year in the gym guys are like squat, bench, deadlift, never more than 3 reps year round forever. That's all you ever do.
Yep.
I just wanted to kind of talk about a little bit, like how you break it down, the importance you feel of, different work capacity, aerobic conditioning, some of the balance stuff you were talking about, and how you feel it's improved your training, and where you feel that there's worth in people including it.
Well, the best example that I can give as to why, like, varying not only your training styles, but like literally the way that I have been looking at it these past couple of years is like training different energy systems in different ways. Like, and the best example of the success of it is, and obviously all of this is anecdotal, but look at that first squat that I hit, that 822, where it was a RPE like 9 million grinder, looked like I was going to die, by following the old training methodologies where it's just you have a hammer. If you have a hammer, everything is a nail. And I was just beating the shit out of everything that I came across. Every obstacle I had, I'd fucking use my hammer, But then diversifying the way that I approach my training, and actually getting away from just squatting, just benching, just deadlifting, and just doing those repetition schemes and all that. It was a way for me to actually get way better than I ever considered. And the way I do it is essentially like I'll work backwards from the prospective meet. So like I know that I'm competing in 8 weeks, and I'm competing in the last weekend of October. So I pick those days, and I literally just like scale back. Like I know going into the meet, it needs to be very, very specific, needs to be like sport specific, because in my sport is the completion of a squat, a bench, and a deadlift. 3 squats, then 3 benches, then 3 deadlifts. That's my sports performance. So that's what I need to prepare for on that day. As I get further away from it, so like back to more than 6 to 8 weeks, more than 6 to 12 weeks out, it's less specific, but it could still be more oriented towards like developing strength in those particular ranges of motion, but let's say not exactly utilizing the same competition standards, like not just doing a squat, but let's start to develop a little bit better a better ability to contract, like actually contract and grind through range of motion, by doing some work prior to getting under the squat bar. And if I know I have a tendency to pitch forward, I don't need to use the squat bar at that time. I could use the safety squat bar or some variation in that capacity, or a squat where I pause on the concentric, or do a tempo on the concentric. A lot of people like view tempo work on the concentric to be like not dumb or not fruitless, but just not the most advisable thing, because when we hear tempo on the concentric, we think, okay, don't you want the concentric to be explosive, to recruit as many motor units as possible, to elicit as much hypertrophy or elicit as much of a muscular response as you possibly can have? And it's like, yes, in that particular context, but the key here is my sport, my performance that I am aiming to become better at is the completion of these lifts. So if I am to do these lifts with a certain level of technical proficiency or a certain level of composure, then adding a tempo on the concentric may be beneficial in that, like, that neurological control aspect. Because like my people think mind muscle connection and you think bodybuilders, but really if we were to think mind muscle connection for a power lifter, I would make it so that it's incredibly important to have that high level of body awareness, that kinesthetic awareness, as not necessarily as you're like it is still important when you're doing like the accessory work and whatnot, but it's very, very important to have a great deal of body awareness when you're doing the squat, the bench, and the deadlift. Because if you have all that strength, it doesn't matter if you can't control it. So it's and the reason, I know I'm rambling to a degree, but and the reason that it, like, at me as the guy who's that top 1% in powerlifting, I don't feel the need to be as specific anymore, because I've already achieved that level of technical proficiency that people are trying to get by doing high frequency squatting, high frequency benching, high frequency deadlifting. And because of that, all I would get if I were to approach things in the way that they usually are approached, where it's just like squat twice a week, bench 3 times a week, deadlift once or 1.5 times a week with some like variation or something. If I were to do that, I've become so good at producing force in those ranges of motion, it would get to a point where that I am making it so that it's either so hard to recover from that stimulus each week to week, session to session, whatever, or I have to use such light weight so that I can still recover with that high enough of frequency, that I'm not going to achieve a similar enough response to prepare me to perform the sport in the way that I can still, or that I need to still could achieve the hypertrophy and whatnot, because submax training is important. But when we think about powerlifting as the sport of lifting weights and being able to lift your maximum potential on the platform, then we have to think about, okay, how can we not just preparing the muscular system, but it's also the psychology behind approaching a heavy weight, the neurological capacity to like control the heavy weight, and the emotional capacity with the association of it, because like it's scary. Like I squat that weight and I think about my knees blowing the fuck up every time. You know, it's not just this one vacuum. You have to start considering all of these other avenues. So there's value in variation.
Yeah, I think that last point you made was great. The point about breaking it down into the components of what goes in to the actual final completion at the end of on meet day. I think that's a really important way to kind of break it down into like showing the value of these other methods and these other things, is when you break it down to how it affects XYZ component of the day.
Yeah.
And simplest, before we move on, one more thing, because that Trevor made me think about this one. The simplest example of that is the old school power lifter who says, oh, anything over 5 reps is cardio. And it's like, okay, I get what you're saying, but you're way off the mark, because think about what the demand is on the individual who's competing in a powerlifting. If I go to a meet, I'm not just squatting. I'm not just looking to break my all-time world record squat. I'm looking to put up a big bench and a big deadlift too. I'm doing all of those things on the same day. Many of the guys who would say anything over 5 reps is cardio, all probably never do cardiovascular exercise, and probably very, very much struggle to be fresh reaching the end of the day when they get to the end, the last deadlifts in a powerlifting meet. So it's just like, okay, if you need a healthy heart and a healthy cardiovascular system to be able to recover from all these things and get to the end of that, why wouldn't we, when we're, as long as we're far away from the competition so that it's not going to affect your peak performance, why wouldn't we train the cardiovascular system? Why wouldn't we do cardio? Like, it doesn't make sense to me when you break it down like that, but there's a lot of people that still abide by that rule and are there. It's like pulling teeth to get them to get like 10,000 steps a day at minimum.
Yeah.
Right. Aside from just good health, with very little trade-off to performance, if not a benefit, as you're explaining, right? It's like, one thing I was thinking about when you were talking, I was thinking about a few things, but the reason why, especially for you, the big three might be something that you wouldn't keep in a whole season would potentially be because you've gotten so proficient. And this is just what I was going through my head. Because you've gotten so proficient, you are recruiting a lot more of those higher threshold motor units when you go to lift these weights, right? So I'm thinking about the fatigue component of that, and then the fatigue component of the absolute loads that you're lifting as well. Right, you're lifting, the magnitude of actual like load is much greater, and so doing a variation like a tempo squat or a different bar that requires you to not use as much load actually has the benefit of not driving that fatigue, especially leading into before meet, prep for a meet. Sorry, yeah.
Yep, 100%, and that's exactly it. It's basically a way, because like auto regulation is important in bodybuilding training, important in powerlifting training. Like, understand, like, sometimes you have to know when to hold them and know when to push, but it's a way, it's like a built-in way to create a certain level of auto regulation so that you can't be, or not that you can't be as strong as you can be on that day, but so that you can't demonstrate that strength in terms of intensity. And when I say intensity, I mean like in relation to your 1 rep max, like the definition of intensity, where it's like how close it is to 100% of your 1 rep max. Because like, believe me, if I were to go into the gym and take a 4x1x4 tempo squat, where it's like 4 seconds down, 1 second in the hole, 4 seconds on the way up, with 65%, 70% or whatever, something around there, that for a couple of reps, that would require a great deal of exertion and a great deal of focus, but you wouldn't get that same level of central fatigue brought about from like a maximum load in regards to intensity plus exertion, because you're not getting the same effects, but you're getting a similar enough stimulus because you're still demanding that same level of focus, that same level of intention when you're going through the range of motion, so you can get the benefit without the negatives. And that's why it's like you can't go into the gym and floor it every time. There's no way, you don't run. It's stupid analogy, but it's like NFL players don't play. Like if we were purely needing to be sport specific all the time, wouldn't NFL players just go play a football game every day? Like,
right.
That doesn't make any goddamn sense, but wouldn't that be the argument? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. There's other skills that they need to work on. And you see this MMA, for example, jiu-jitsu, their actual technical work, like all this stuff, right? It's as much as, especially in powerlifting, people want to be like one-dimensional. It's not one-dimensional, right? There's so many things that go into, we were talking about nutrition earlier, right? You're talking about these variations, right? Managing fatigue. There's so many other hydration. There's so many other things that comprise getting to that platform, right? It's not just I'm gonna do deadlift, squat, and bench, and then walk on meet day, and then I just hit my lifts. Like it's there's so many components.
100%.
Yeah,
it's almost Yeah, it's almost like we're all very, very multifaceted beings and not just one dimensional. One
Right,
dimensional.
right.
That'd be crazy.
I don't know. It's blasphemy. I don't know if we can put
Crazy
that out
talk.
on this podcast, right? Yeah. Speaking of variation, we wanted to talk a little bit about your was it 24 rep attempts platz record?
Mm-hmm.
Whose crazy
Yeah.
idea was that, first of all? And it was 525 was the weight?
525.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if it was me or Jake that came up with it. I think it was me. I think it was me. It was me, and I just kind of roped him into it because I was like, "Oh, it'll be a fun thing to do." But
Fun.
then it was like, "Oh, this is actually turning into an event, and this is going to be horrible."
Yeah.
It was, dude. That was I have got to say, because people have asked me, "Hey, are you guys going to try to do that again?" Because I don't know whoever's listening to this. I didn't get 24 reps to beat Tom Platz. I got 20, but I got close. It was just, but I will tell you, it was the hardest training cycle I have ever participated in. It was harder than any powerlifting prep. Like powerlifting preps are fun. I get to hit a single and I'm like, fuck yeah, that's great. This was cool. This shit was the most brutal. Dude, I cannot begin to describe to you how horrible. Like, I still have this one session burned in my fucking mind that I don't know if I'll ever do anything that was harder because I did 415 pounds for 6 sets of 10 with 60-second rest. Just like think about those numbers for a second. I thought every fucking squat day, every leg day, I thought I was going to have a goddamn heart attack. It was nuts. It's like nobody even, the thing about it is, cause like I was in incredible shape. Like I was in cardiovascular system, awesome. Muscular system, awesome. I was feeling good in that sense. But what didn't feel good and what nobody will tell you about squatting that much weight for that long, because it's different than squatting like a high intensity weight, like 800, 900 pounds. Because if you think about a powerlifting meet and a powerlifting attempt, a 1 rep max attempt, that lasts what? 7 to 15 seconds.
Yeah.
How long that goddamn squat rep attempt took, the bar was on my back for 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
Jesus.
My rib cage hurt. Yeah. Like I started to get this pain in the center of my back, and I was like, I don't know what, I've never felt this before. And it turned out to be like where my ribs originate off of my spine, there was just so much compression occurring that just the tissue there was getting inflamed, and it was just horrible, dude. It was, I have every intention of coming back and trying to do that again, but I'm not going to do that for a couple of years because I don't think that I could if I wanted to. So it was fun, it was awesome, but it was dumb as fuck. So
I was watching it last night, and I noticed you both just kind of fell over. You didn't like rack the weight like I'm done. You both just like kind of collapsed into. You're like I'm done, and you just like are just like falling into the rack.
Dude, that's exactly what it was. Like I think one of the because if you, whoever's watching this, if you go back and watch the video, like on my reps were the same speed the whole time up until like rep 18 or 19, and I like shifted a little bit, and you can see it in like my chest. I'm like I'm upright and proud, and then after that rep where I kind of wobbled just because of the fatigue, I like lose an inch. And I hit one more rep and go back to like take a breath. And rather than going that I have been and being able to actually like get oxygen, I don't go, I go, oh, and I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay. All right, here we go. And I bend my legs and I come back up. But as soon as that happened, it was like a fucking triangle choke. I literally just felt like just vision went from the outside in, tunnel vision, and I'm like, I'm going out, I'm dead, I'm done. And they literally just lifted the weight off my back, and I fell down, and it was crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's interesting. And Trevor, I don't know if you've ever coached any people or even Joe yourself. having people who used to be powerlifters go to bodybuilding, like the weights that they're using is just like, it's just crazy. Like there's probably so much you have to do, like, because you're talking about like having to do 400 pounds for sets of 10, right? And it's like the fatigue component is just like is brutal, or like it's different than squatting 200 pounds for a set of 20 or whatever, right? Like when you do that, like it's the actual absolute load is still very high. Like is there ever, like, Trevor or Joe, like is there ever, like, do you have to manage fatigue with these people, if you've ever worked with those type of people?
Trevor, you want to go first?
One thing, the first thing you generally do is you just make them stop doing the competition. You make them stop squatting, deadlifting, and bench pressing for a while, because they are just so strong, and you can generally throw them on a machine, and because they're just generally not as efficient, that can manage fatigue for a while. But eventually, it still catches up, and they're just so strong that fatigue management becomes a different ball game for someone like that than it is for just somebody who's, if you're squatting 315 for 10 versus if you're squatting 495 for 10, and everything going up from there is just more and more that you're having to put into managing the fatigue.
And absolutely, that's like, I share the same sentiment, like especially if, because I don't coach many bodybuilders. I'm more just like powerlifters and people who want to be big and strong but don't really have aspirations of competing. They're just like, they want to be the guys who are like power builders, as dumb of a term that is. It's just the guys that like being strong but also want to look good. But that's exactly it. It's like, if someone is going from like let's say it's someone who's going from from a powerlifting prep who's like already strong, but then they're like, okay, now I want to pivot, and like I don't even care about powerlifting for the next year. I just want to put tissue on. It's literally like, you will have to get them away from the stuff that they're good at, get them away from the stuff that they've learned how to be efficient at, because it's not even that the fact that they're strong. It's the fact that they've learned how to be like biomechanics their way through positions, because that it's their sport. It's what they compete in. So even if it's like, hey, think about your quads when you're squatting, it's so impossible to like get a power lifter who's done 1,000,000 reps focused on just moving the weight up and down to really just isolate the quads and think about that. So get them away from the main movements, and then apply, like, so we talked about like variations and like breaking the movements into like partial positions, like 1.5 reps and things like that. Apply that same principle. At least this is what I do. I apply the same level of variation to machines, because it's like a stable environment versus a compound lift, which is much more like coordination demanding and whatnot. And it's like, okay, if somebody who's very like me for instance, or like someone, or just anybody, but someone who's like good at squatting, it's like, okay, you're good at squatting, let's get you away from a squat, let's put you on a hack squat, put your stance really close together, and then say 3 count eccentric, explosive concentric, but pause in the middle, and then descend back into the hole and come back up for like 1.5 reps. Do 3 sets of 10, and then the person is like, okay, 3 sets of 10, and then they're like, wait a minute, that's like 1.5 reps. So that's like, we do like 3 sets of 15 or something like that with eccentrics, and it's like, yup, yes I do. And they're like, what weight do you want me to use? And I'm like, not a lot, because you're gonna fucking die. So
so get them away from their movements they're proficient in. Get them doing some of these other variations, and probably you need to cue them differently too, because they're used to powerlifting cues, right? We need to get them to like more make it actually more difficult on the target muscle cues, right? Like powerlifting is like get to A to B, versus like bodybuilding is like stay in the muscle the whole time kind of deal, right?
100%.
Less efficient.
Cool, Joe. Well, we're gonna get you out of here, but just one last thing I wanted to leave with. You have live, learn, pass on your forearm, if I'm not mistaken. What does that really mean, and why did you get that tattooed on your forearm?
Well, it's actually, I used to work with Elite FTS, Elite Fitness Training Systems, which is an educational and equipment producing company out of Columbus, Ohio, owned by Dave Tate. Got a lot of love for Dave still. I'm not affiliated with them anymore just because I've moved on to do my own stuff. But I got, that's their motto, and I got that tattooed on my left forearm in 2018, because I am a big, just like what I said at the beginning of the podcast. Like my dad, and I love my dad. Like he's my best friend. He and I have like gone through a lot of stuff together, because I mentioned poverty and struggles and stuff. Like that guy's been by my side through all of it, and he's really been one of the best role models in my life, because he always kind of instilled in me, like, if you have the capacity to do good, or to be good, or to like put good out or put love out into the world, you also have the obligation to do it. It's not a choice at that point. Like the whole adage of like, if not you, then who, type thing. And when I saw Live, Learn, Pass On from Elite FTS, I really, really resonated with that, because we live our experiences, we learn from them, and we continue to move on through life. But the only way that we can actually make make a real legacy and make a real impact on the world isn't through the stuff that we do. It's the stuff that we give back to the people that are coming after us. And that's the pass on part. That's why I'm big on coaching, big on education. I'm big on like free content and whatnot. There are a lot of people that like will put up paywalls or like do the whole thing where like, hey, I can't, like, I got to charge for this, blah, blah, blah. And believe me, I make a living off of this. So it's like within reason. But I'm really, really big on just giving back and like being this like Dylan, you said it when you started. You were like, you got good vibes for me and I'm a good dude and whatever. And I appreciate it. I don't want to like assume or put words in anybody else's mouth, but like that's what I want to lead with. That's part of the pass on part. Like every interaction, everything that I give to the world, to somebody out there, I want it to be positive. I want people to remember me not for, oh shit, Joe had a really great squat. Like when at my funeral, I don't want people talking about my weightlifting. I want people to talk about like what I gave them, what I left behind, and how much better I made their lives, their experience, or how good I could put or how much good I could put out into the world. And I actually have always tattooed on this arm. This is an audio medium. I know it's visual also, but I'm showing always on my right forearm, because that's tied into the Live, Learn, Pass On thing. This one's my own thing. That was of my own creation, but it just kind of furthers the point that like to live, learn, and pass on, and most importantly, pass on. It's not always the most easy. It's easy to get jaded. It's easy to become disillusioned. It's easy to see how many people like buy into the most ridiculous shit, or like default to the negativity and the hatred and the scarcity mindset, where it's like I'm gonna get mine, and fuck you if you try to like get yours, because if you win, you're taken from me. And it's really more about the abundance side of things, where it's like if you win, I win. We win together. A rising tide raises all ships. And even though it's difficult sometimes, we're always presented with the opportunity to make our choice and choose to live, learn, and pass on, and to do the right thing, and to do good, and to have conversations like this, and hopefully lead by example and be cool fucking guys that also like to lift weights and get huge and get high and shit like that. So
well, I will tell you that my only purpose in life is to just get as jacked as possible and fuck everybody else.
That's it. That's it.
No, that's great. I think that's a great way to leave out this podcast. And Joe, if you, I know you do offer some coaching, you have some other services, please plug away.
Yep, I do. Oops. I just got hit with low battery. I don't know if I went away. I don't know if you guys can still see me.
You're good.
But perfect time for plugging. But no, yeah, I'm a coach. I like I said, I coach powerlifters, guys that just want to get big and strong and have fun. And I do consultations too, because I also have found a knack for just talking through some issues with people when it comes to either mentality or their approach to training, or just kicking ideas around. So if you want to reach me, feel free to hit me up on any of my socials. I'm primarily on Instagram. It's Joe Sullivan _AOD. My DMs are always open. They're fucking busy like crazy, but you can always get a hold of me. I also book calls through my Linktree and all that stuff. And if you are interested in coaching or joining my free Discord, hit me up on my website. It's the AODcollective.com. AOD stands for Adapt or Die, because that's also the motto. It's we either change and get better and grow, or we stagnate and we don't fucking go anywhere. So website, Instagram, find me, talk to Dylan, bother him, tell him to get a hold of me so I can get a hold of you. Doesn't matter.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe.
Cool. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey everyone, I'm glad to see that you made it this far. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Don't forget to leave a review on your favorite listening platform. Check out Joe's links below, as he does offer powerlifting coaching and calls. And if you're interested in bodybuilding coaching, please follow my link in the description to book a consultation. Thank you all for listening.